Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
Leading up to the events and of the debut of Star Wars Jedi Survivor, the big question is whether Cal Kestis' Jedi journey is in fact canon. And I think it's pretty obvious to say that, of course, the clear-cut answer to that would be yes, it is canon. Set to release on April 28th, at the time of recording and publishing this video, Jedi Survivor is out, and it takes place 5 years after the events of the original game, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and follows the newly published Star Wars Jedi Battle Scars book. Here are some important details that you'll need to know before diving into Jedi Survivor, of course unless you already have. Firstly, discussing a little bit about the canon and the overall lure with this book. Within new stories comes a new question on whether Cal Kestis' story belongs within the established Star Wars lore. Does it make sense? Or whether if it's only true from a certain point of view, and as if this actually isn't taking place within the Star Wars canon. And so even though Lucasfilm appears committed to keeping its Jedi Survivor / Fallen Order franchise separate from the films and the overall Star Wars Disney Plus series for now, with not having any crossover characters, pretty much all signs do point towards that the game and the new game are both canon. First of all, the first game, Fallen Order, is considered canon. We know that. That's clear and cut. The game's been out for quite some time now, and we've known that it is canon. Not only does the game acknowledge events and individuals from the films and the series, but it actually does provide the context. Following the game's 2019 debut, other Star Wars projects have referenced elements from the game, such as the Book of Boba Fett used of a BD unit droid, and Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 1 visits the planet of Braca. Secondly, the Star Wars Jedi Battle Scars tie-in book is also considered canon, taking place before the events of the second game and after the events of the first game, and since the new narrative leads up to Survivor, it only makes sense for Survivor to be canon as well. I think, yeah, what I mentioned at the beginning of this video, it's very clear and cut. All of it is canon. That really isn't necessarily a question at this point. Lucasfilm's own precedent is further evidence for the game's status as well. Ever since the creation of the Star Wars Legends umbrella in April of 2014, when Lucasfilm had moved a bunch of its contents from canon to Legends, all subsequent Star Wars projects have been considered canon unless otherwise stated by the studio of Lucasfilm specifically. Perhaps the real reason for the confusion surrounding the Jedi Survivor / Fallen Order franchise's canonicity has to do with its medium. We're only seeing this in a video game and a little bit within a novel. While books, movies, and Disney Plus shows are concrete on story, video games have a balanced type of narrative with gameplay, and actually playing and interacting with the characters. Therefore, certain choices players make concerning Cal Kestis' appearance, his saber hilt, and even playing the game itself are naturally not in line with Star Wars continuity, and it can go in either different direction, which is an interesting topic to bring up. What matters is most overall is the story of Fallen Order or Survivor, which is largely unaffected by the gameplay, the overall outcome, essentially, of the beginning, middle, and the end. Really just the overall fact and idea that you're able to toy around with it and, well, play it like a game. In a past interview, Cal Kestis actor Cameron Monaghan had actually discussed balancing a game with Star Wars canon versus Legends, as well as how a video game story has to be satisfying and interesting regardless. As he says in full quotes, "I think that we have a bunch of really big questions that we're asking with this one. It's funny because it's this dual-sided thing, right? You have an established lure, character, canon, all that stuff, and you're so excited about it, and you love it, but also, at the end of the day, this needs to exist, and it needs to be satisfying and interesting regardless of this, right?" Ending that quote right there, referring to the overall game, the overall franchise of what this game is, its own kind of separate thing, as I had earlier mentioned, from the rest of the Disney Plus shows and movies and whatnot. You don't really see very interconnected characters like we would see maybe, for example, with the Mandoverse. You have Boba Fett show up in Mando's show, you have Mando show up in Boba's show. It's interconnected. And yes, the Fallen Order / Survivor franchise does have many different references to what is in canon and to the regards of events or characters, but nothing really has a crossover like we saw with the Mandoverse. Cameron Monaghan had also revealed that anybody who's ever never watched a Star Wars movie will be able to play it and is still able to understand it, because as I had mentioned, it is kind of taking place in its own kind of part of the galaxy in a way, as he says in full quote. You want to be able to have them interact with each other and have an interplay, but also it's always been important with me, with our stories, that the drama, the stakes, the characters should be clear, regardless of whether or not you have any understanding of anything outside of it. And I want everybody who's never watched a Star Wars movie, read a Star Wars story, or anything like that, to be able to jump into this and play it and still be able to understand it and its overall story. Ending that quote right there. So really overall, yes, Jedi Survivor is canon overall. Everything with this whole Fallen Order / Survivor franchise here really is a part of canon. But for those looking to rely on Fallen Order or Survivor to deepen their knowledge of the Star Wars lore, like you're a total nerd like I am, it's important to remember that their stories are told through a different means, and one that needs to be accessible to non-Star Wars fans, while also offering entertaining gameplay at the same time, as it's interacting and really being and existing in two separate worlds of just gaming and in actual entertainment, like into the regards of a TV show. And really, in comparison to other Star Wars stories releasing this year alone, Survivor just might be Lucasfilm's biggest challenge given to how many boxes it needs to check out compared to TV shows or movies. But even though Survivor has a lengthy list of priorities, the fact it belongs within Star Wars canon does mean that there's still hope for Cal Kestis to cross over into live action soon, although I don't think we'll be seeing it that soon. I think that we'll probably get another Jedi Survivor / Fallen Order game of some sorts, and from there they'll begin to make that transition into other mediums, into live action, into the Mandoverse, fingers crossed. We are seeing him actually transition into other mediums with that new novel, Jedi Battle Scars, but what else is out there? What other mediums could we see? We have video games, a book. I would like to maybe see some type of comic interpretation of that book, and also have him maybe show up in other comic books and other comic book storylines. I think would be cool to see. Now, at this point in time, to be honest with you guys, at the point in time of recording and publishing this video, I haven't actually had the chance to play Jedi Survivor quite yet. I just haven't gotten around to it. And although, yes, don't get me wrong, I'm very excited for the game, let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section down below. How has it been so far? What is your favorite features about it? The overall story of where it's going so far? And some of your favorite features for the overall gameplay? I would love to hear what you guys all think in the comment section down below. Of course, this has been Unofficial Star Wars. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great one, guys. May the Force be with you as always. Peace out.